personalized stuff. But anyway, all right, so this is the link, bit.ly, HDM, Interstate. There's nothing there right now. There will be after we're done with the presentation, obviously. Like I said, all the content information is for it. What I'd like to do is, I know that we have three distinct disciplines to the room right now, but we have one cohesive thought, and that is we're independent hotels. I've come from independent hotels. I came from brand initially when I first got into hotels, and when I first took over my first independent hotel, I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I'm so used to blue blood Hilton or red blood Marriott. I don't know what to do for an independent. And all of a sudden I sat back and go, wait a minute, I'm an independent hotel. I can be polka dot if I want to. And started kicking everybody's butt. Because we could turn on dimes, we can make changes, we can influence everything that goes on with what we're doing. There is huge benefits to brand. Please don't take that wrong. There are amazing benefits to brand, but there's also huge limitations to brand. And not to get political about mergers and acquisitions and so forth, but there's a lot of lateral that gets lost in brand that you as independent hoteliers can do. So for the next 45-ish minutes, which I'm going to ask to be reminded of, because I will talk, is drop the revenue management title, drop the digital marketing title, drop the sales title, and think of it from the spirit of the heart of the servant, your hotel, what does all this stuff we're going to talk about. What we're really going to talk about is the convergence of understanding revenue management, which is the horizon line of things, and digital marketing, which we should stop saying digital, let's just start saying marketing. Because in all aspects, even though there's traditional aspects to marketing, it really digital touches all of that already. And I'm going to squeak, I think, the entire time I'm talking. But anyway, I'd also like to get you up to speed. Sometimes being so monocular to what we're doing every day, we forget what's going on around us. I mean, especially, well, anyway, not to go political, but there's a lot of things that distract us. And there's a lot of things that are happening, that are amazing things that are happening in our industry, or that will affect our industry. So I want to play a video. It's going to last about 5 minutes, but it'll give you a sense of the context of what we're really going to talk about today, the influence of what we can do for our hotels.
If you are sitting in the United States or Europe right now, you've probably never used the Chinese app. But the reality is, if you want to know how the internet will develop, China, the land once known for its cheap rip-offs, has actually become a guide to the future. You know, the internet is the internet, but for China, the internet is more like an intranet. It's largely walled off from the Western world by this incredibly complex system of filters and blocks that we call the Great Firewall. And basically, the Great Firewall blocks any foreign site the Communist Party doesn't believe can control. So that means there is no Facebook, no Twitter, no Google. Instead, what filled the internet vacuum was a generation of Chinese copycats that have grown into huge companies. So for Google, you had Baidu. For YouTube, you had Youku. For Twitter, you had Sina Weibo. The list goes on and on. It's almost as if the Chinese internet is a lagoon as an aside to the greater ocean of the internet. And in that lagoon, there are these swamp monster apps that bear some resemblance to the creatures in the ocean, but are mutated in some ways because they evolved in a different kind of environment. But things have started to shift in the sense that before, no one outside of the lagoon really cared about the swamp monsters. But now, all of a sudden, some of the features they've developed are so amazing that Western apps are trying to copy them. And the greatest example of this is WeChat. WeChat is an example of, for lack of a better word, a super app. It's a Swiss Army knife that basically does everything for you. It's your WhatsApp, Facebook, Skype, and Uber. It's your Amazon, Instagram, Venmo, and Tinder. But it's other things we don't even have apps for. There are hospitals that have built out whole appointment booking systems. There are investment services. There are even heat maps that show how crowded a place is, be it your favorite shopping mall or a popular tourist site. The list of services goes on basically forever. But it's not the variety of things you can do on WeChat that makes it so powerful. It's the fact that they're all in one app. So why does that matter? Hypothetically, imagine you're sitting at home and one day you notice your corgi is dirty. You open WeChat, hit a few buttons, and a few hours later a man shows up at your door with some shampoo and a big vacuum. Your dog gets cleaned and he looks great. You take a photo, you share it with your friends, and tag the dog cleaning business. You haven't left the app. Your friend who likes Hello Kitty and works a boring office job is slacking off at work and looking at WeChat. She sees the photo of your clean corgi. She decides she wants her poodle clean. She clicks the tag on your photo and orders the same service. Within seconds, the man with the big vacuum is on his way to her house. She pays him, and he's happy because he got paid instantly on WeChat. She starts chatting with you to thank you. Neither of you have left the app. While chatting, she tells you about a new hip noodle joint. She says, you have to come. It's a schlep, but you accept. She orders food while still at her desk. You order a taxi. She pays for the food. On the way to her house, the man with the big vacuum invests the money he earned from both of you into a wealth management product that's probably a little too risky. Neither of you nor the man with the big vacuum have left the app. Both of you arrive and the app tells the kitchen you're there. Your WeChat profile photo pops up on the wall. It's an old photo from the year you had that weird part in your hair. Of course she makes a comment. Your food is served. You notice your meat is a bit overcooked, so you snap a photo and post a disparaging restaurant review. You're already on your phone, and you remember you still owe your friend money because she paid. You transfer her money. Neither of you, the man with the big vacuum, nor the restaurant, have left the app. At the restaurant, there are no menus, there are no waiters, there is no cashier. There is only WeChat. By rolling so many functions into one single app, it's altered the concept of virality. It's no longer just videos or images or tweets that can go viral. It's a dog washer, noodles, all sorts of companies and products to get the push of the social network. Here in China, that network is 700 million people. Sounds great, right? Well, it is, but using a single app to find a date, schedule an oil change, or notarize a document also enables WeChat to collect a staggering volume of personal data. They know what you talk about, who you talk about it with, what you read, where you go, why you're going there, who's there, how you spend money when you're online, how you spend money when you're offline. The list goes on indefinitely. For advertisers, this is a miracle. It's the combined data of Facebook, Amazon, Google, and PayPal, all in one place. The problem is, all of the data is information Chinese companies are forced to share with the Chinese government, which has a long record of human rights violations, and isn't exactly shy about stalking its citizens. So if you're not in China, why does this matter? It matters because we're starting to see a number of Western tech companies attempt to replicate super apps like WeChat. For the companies, it's incredibly powerful. And for you and me, it's convenient and even transformative technology. But of course, it could also be problematic. Concentrating so much data in so few hands could lay the groundwork for an Orwellian world where companies and governments can track every single movement you make.
So I played that for a couple of things. One is I'd also like to predicate that this is not a presentation, this is a dialogue. It's going to be a participation, correlation kind of thing. Whoops, let me go forward. And in that way, I'm going to do something a little backwards. Everyone take out their phones, please. Especially those with iPhones, don't worry, Android people, you have your chance to understand why you're going to have a second option on this one. I have to give Mike credit to this. Mike is the one that gave the, I saw him do this in a presentation I thought was very impactful because most people are not aware of this. Now, as we know, Tim, who runs Apple, has said that your information is your information. We don't share it as much as Google does, and they poo-pooed on Zuckerberg, who wanted to share the data and so forth. And so your phone has replaced, as we know for those old enough, a lot of things. GPS, music, and so forth. If you would be so kind to go through the steps, it takes a couple of minutes, not a couple of minutes, a minute or so to kind of scroll through the process and what have you. It's a key element on the bottom that once you see the list, click on something that has some activity, and you'll see that, what date or something, and you'll click it. And if I could ask the first person that gets to this point, that hasn't turned off their location settings, which most people don't, but if you did, please raise your hand and tell me what it is that you see. You see a list?
I do.
Click one of the things on the list that has some sort of date to it or frequency. So it should give you a map. Is it?
No.
Find one that has something of your dates that were on a date that was a location, and there's dates associated with you. There should be some choices to make.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Do you see little circles? Circles and time. Your phone knows where you were on that date and for how long you were there. Now, Tim, who runs Apple, says he doesn't share that, but certainly Apple uses that in their dialogue of always trying to improve their relationship with you. Now, why I played the first video and why I show this. Before I go to the Android's answer to this question, everyone with their phones, at this point you put it on the table, if you would leave it on the table, because I'm going to ask that should you pick it up, we never want to avoid emergency calls or so forth, but I will ask you, either a question or a response to what we're talking about, because it's important through all this process that we don't do the little stoop look on the phone underneath the table. So if everyone put their phones on the table, that'd be great. What happened, now did you notice that the messenger icon was replaced by WhatsApp at the very end? What has been something that's happened recently in the news? This video was made long before a few things. It was actually, it's about a year old now. What's some things that have happened in the past year that might allude to? Something that's been in the news a couple of times. Specifically with Facebook. Privacy issues. Where did they stem from? The use of Analytica in England, stealing or abusing their information data pull from Facebook. Facebook has been very liberal with their data share as to the data you can get from them and use from them. I often say that the difference between a marketer and a government agency, the marketer only knows you by the avatar that you are, but the government knows you by name, and that's the only difference. Because there's so much we know about our trends and habits and purchases and locations and things that we're doing, that it's better and easier for me as a marketer, because ultimately I want to provide the most ultimate product to you as an individual, not as an entity of a bunch of people. So with that in mind, we're going to go and play another video, which is for your Android, and we don't have to do this exercise because it kind of is self-descriptive as to what happens. But just so that the Android people don't feel left out, that it isn't happening in a different way.
We know that Google is tracking us. We agree to it when we set up our phones. So we wanted to figure out what exactly Google is learning about us throughout the day. So here's what we're going to do. We have two identical phones. The only difference between these two phones is this one is in airplane mode. Both of the phones lack a SIM card, and they haven't been set up to access any Wi-Fi networks. So for all intents and purposes, these phones have no connection to a data network. We're going to keep them with us throughout the day. And while I travel around DC, we're going to figure out just what Google is finding out about me.
Our first stop, Sim's convenience store, just outside of Fox Bureau, for a quick coffee. From there, we took a walk to the Capitol and took a quick walk around the Senate office buildings, and then decided to hop in a car and head around town.
Hello. We're going to the Children's Hospital, please.
To run our test, we had to do more than walk the block, so we took a tour around our nation's capital. First, due north to the Children's National Medical Center Hospital, then west to St. Albans School and the National Cathedral. Our tour around town was a 14-mile journey that lasted more than an hour. The entire time, the phones had no access to the internet.
Oh my goodness.
Not a Wi-Fi connection and not any cellular data service. It almost seemed quaint to assume that Google wouldn't even be able to collect data on me.
Let's head back to the Bureau, my friend. Oh, that church is beautiful.
Google's business model is simple. Collect data on its users and then use that data to sell targeted ads. It's a business model called surveillance capitalism. But does that critical data collection work even when your phones aren't connected?
So we're back here at our Fox Bureau in DC, and we've got both of our phones exactly how we left with them. The only difference, really, I snapped a couple of bad selfies at the National Cathedral. But otherwise, they have stayed in my pocket for the entire day. So let's find out what they know. This is our man-in-the-middle device. It's basically a Wi-Fi network that these phones are going to connect to once we turn their Wi-Fi on. It's going to pass data through it on the way to Google. But on the way, we're actually going to get a copy of the same data that Google's going to get. We'll be able to decrypt it and then find out where we've been throughout the day.
Within minutes, the numbers rolled in. The phone that wasn't on airplane mode registered more than 100 locations, 130 activities, and even 152 barometric readings. As soon as it hooked up to our Wi-Fi, it transmitted 300 kilobytes of data straight to Google. The phone even logged our exact locations, tracking us all around town, the Capitol, the hospital, the school, and the cathedral.
Now you may notice what's missing here is the exact route that we took, but it got that data too. It knows when I got out of the car.
The metadata has a time log down to the very second, tracking everything. When they think that you're walking, riding, and yes, even getting out of the car.
Okay, so you're thinking, this isn't a big deal, I'll just put my phone in airplane mode. Yeah, we thought of that too. This is the other phone that we had with us that no SIM card also remained in airplane mode the entire time. Let's see what kind of data it captured.
The phone with airplane mode activated actually logged more locations and activities than the other phone, and it also transferred hundreds of kilobytes of data to Google as soon as it was activated.
The only thing that's missing from this map is our stop at the Children's Hospital, but it still knows we were there. There it is. Exiting vehicle, 100% accuracy,
Through complicated user agreements and free software, Google gets users to sign away their privacy for nothing. They're even following you in the places that most people would expect total privacy. Government buildings, a children's hospital, a private school, a church. Every move you make, every step you take, Google is watching you.
So, showed this because this is the data that's used by marketers. There is persistence. You see, you go to a website, you see retargeting, you see the ad show up to a point of nausea and so forth. The idea of this is that all of this data is available. Why is this important to us? We run hotels. This is great technology. These are things that are happening. We want that personalization. We want to make sure that whatever it is that we are being given or fed is relevant individually to us. And we are willing to surrender some of our personal information. Out of coverage that you just saw and additional coverage, Google changed its policies. Actually, it just changed its statement in saying that it will still continue to track you. Nothing's changed, but it's to help you with your maps. So it just changed how it's telling you why it's tracking what it is that it's tracking for you. This information is there. Now you can shut this off. It still will track some relevant information about the phone itself. And it may reduce some of the location-based stuff, but so to all the apps that you use that help you designate searches and locations and so forth also be turned off. So again, it's that balance of what is it that you want it to do for you, the dependence upon it, and what it is you want from it. But again, to what are we here for? What is this purpose that we have for it? We should never lose sight of the fact that we, and I'll let you read this because I hate reading the slide ahead of it because everyone reads it faster than I can read it. We are in an amazing industry at an amazing time, unlike any other. Now that may sound like a very dramatic statement, but it is a very truthful statement in this way. We have existed under the belief that our culture wants us to have a small little house in suburbia with a white picket fence and 2.5 kids and 2 cars, and we have our local events that surround us. That image is gone now. We have reasons for it, economic crises and so forth, change in patterns of demographics, so we can't blame millennials or even label millennials in this categorization. This is a representation of all of us, that we want experiences. We want to enjoy what it is to live in our world. What is it that we're in the business of? Exactly that. We're in the business of providing the experiences. Now, you may say, well, I have a limited service property between location A and location C. But the value and the merit of its location, the service that you can provide, is a part of this entire process compared to if you're a destination resort that you travel to. The idea is that the heart of the servant is the core of our industry. Whether a person that owns the company sees it that way, it is our process that we step to the front desk, when we engage with our guests, and we as marketers or salespeople or anything have to keep focusing on how does this benefit our guests. One thing we didn't mention of why I played the original video with the WeChat, another thing that came out of it, I don't know if you've heard this acronym before, GDPR, okay? And it took a lot of people by storm, even though it was 2 years in the process. And that's because us as marketers can't control ourselves. And somebody needs to put bumpers around us. And it's only going to get more specific as we keep trying to find more ways to abuse the relationship. And what it basically wants us to do as marketers is handle the data that is not ours, but it's the privilege of us to use to help the benefit of our guests. So that's why it is so important for us. And why I say this is because we have a problem with our industry that we have to kind of shift from. For the salespeople, this is not meant to be read, but to reflect to. This is how we define our guests. This is actually a Marriott schema of market group segmentations, okay, and transient and what have you, as to how we identify our guests. Now, unless a very small blue person checks into your hotel, there's no such thing as Smurf business. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we have that categorization. May I ask, why do we refer to Smurfs? Why? Why do we categorize people? So, do you have a question?
Buying habits. Buying habits.
Buying habits. We as humans have a hard time with individualities. We stereotype, we categorize. I mean, I'm often mistaken for a low 20s Jamaican female. So, this is one of my personas. I go out there and see. We try to generalize ourselves so that we understand, without being caught off guard, that we don't know how to relate. It could be gender-based, it could be age-based, it could be anything. So we categorize our same ways when we do marketing. We can't market to one person, so we thought. So we put them into a group that says, oh, that's a wedding. That's corporate travel. And then we have a premise to how we engage with them. Corporate travel wants certain pieces of information. Wedding travel wants certain pieces of information. Fraternity, so we categorize them. But all this data we're talking about is contra to that. It really does allow us to tailor our messaging specifically to the people that we're most interested in talking to. We're going to have some examples of that. We're going to go through a couple of like the GDPR stuff and things like that, and then we go way off the ranch and talk about some other tools and so forth as we go along. This is how we see our guests. We try to categorize them in a linear fashion. Oh, they're going to come with us. We got to go catch them. Then before they get here, we got to go talk to them. Once they're with us, we got to dialogue with them, and then when they leave, we got to go figure out how to get them back. We think of it in a very linear way. None of us are linear. If you don't think you're linear, then explain to me how, when you're looking for a hotel room in Boston, you ended up buying socks off of Amazon. Because we just, squirrel, and off we go. And we'll follow some tangent in some way. Now the draw to all of this is that we have to start creating some commonalities of what we do, how we do it. Sales is not the office in the back corner or an office off to the side, and revenue management is a different office, and e-commerce is somewhere over here, operations is over there, accounting is there, HR is over there, operations people over there, don't talk to those people. Heck, if a salesperson ever came in and rolled at a banquet table, it would be a miracle. All that's gone, okay? What we have to do is begin to dialogue what we do symbiotically together, collectively for our hotel. These are just sticks in the sand. These are just points and places of things that we have to make sure we have a commonality for. We have to talk in the same terminology. I call it the vernacular. We have to refer to the same things in the same way with the same value. Now, I know it sounds vague right now. We'll get to more specifics in just a moment. So, this is a simplistic rendition of the overlap of what marketers, revenue management. If you want to place yourself into where you land from a sales perspective, you land a little bit in both. Because you have the known customer and the unknown customer as a salesperson. You have those that you know are people you want to reach, or entities that you want to reach. And then there's those that you have to cultivate and work with that you do know. So you're kind of in a crossroads between the two, but revenue is definitely into the known consumer world, and marketing is definitively in the unknown consumer world. And I'll explain that a little bit more. What I mean by it, and I borrowed this from Jane with ideas. We were talking over cocktails one time. And I said, oh, you know, revenue management is like driving a car without looking forward, just using your rear mirror, okay? Where you're using all this historical data, and you're looking at the sides of where you are, and you're hoping you know enough of that you know where you're going. And so they actually put, whoops, let me go back. They actually put, I have to play this, that's where you should play stuff. They actually put a little diagram together, so that's pretty cute. If you ever tried this, it's a challenge, you know, just driving through your rear mirror and so forth. The idea is that marketing works with the stuff that revenue managers don't see forward. For those revenue managers in the room, and for the salespeople that work with revenue managers in e-commerce, you know it's based on previous occupancies, previous trends, previous ADRs, previous expectations. You're looking at historical data. And I know shaking head because we had this conversation. The idea is that it's based first there before it's projected forward on anything else. Because you core it with what you knew before you assume what you don't. Marketing doesn't take the predication of what was historical. It only sees the relevant of what's being actioned at the time to know whether it influences the past. So in fact, it's referring to validating the old data, where revenue managers prefer to validate the old data with the new data going forward. I had this question come up, so that's why it's like, when you shake this up, yes, I talked about this. We've had it a couple times when we talked. All right, so this is a very simplistic way of looking at what I'm referring to. That little blue square area is before most of the data associated with revenue managers. Revenue managers deal with time booking windows, arrival dates, stay opportunities, the ADR associated with those, the source of business associated with those, and of course the departure dates. That's hard data, the structured data that revenue managers use. Marketers work more with the data associated with the leads into that. And that's where comes into our social platforms, our engagements with our direct channel, where you're seeing people from geographic areas beginning to engage with your websites. You're seeing people that are talking about social events well before booking windows of those things come up. That's that area that marketers get a lot of data to. That data needs to be applied to the more structured, usable data of the analytical portion of the revenue managers. I want to refer to some examples of this as to usabilities of this. Because when I ask questions, particularly of the revenue manager people. Facebook has some great tools. Now they've changed some of their tools because of the analytic issues and so forth. They've changed them for most general marketers, but their large preferred marketers still get the same accesses. Now if you think about with Facebook, like, well, I don't share a lot of accurate data, or I don't share much data with them. There's a lot of implied data that goes on, what you like, dislike, what your friends engage with, what your friends like, what they've shared, what you react to, what you look at, what you spend time on and on and on and on and on. I used to make a comment, and Mike has heard me say this before, is that back 6 years ago, I could go over and find a one-armed Hindu in Amish country looking for Tex-Mex food. And I would actually have an audience in Facebook that I could send an ad to. Well, it got so robust, the filters that were capable in Facebook, that I could also add that he had two daughters, one that went to Penn State, that drove a BMW, that was at least 3 years old, that they lived in a home that was worth at least $1.5 million in Boston for at least 10 years. And I'd still have an audience. That's crazy filters. I mean, crazy filters. Now, when you add that to the fact that everybody that visits your website, you can create a custom audience from. So when they visit your web page, you know where they're from, what they looked at, how long they looked at it, what their interest is, their demographics, all that stuff. You can literally say, hey, were you thinking about a beautiful beach wedding in June at the XYZ hotel? We have a great offer for you. Boom. It's crazy the details you can get with this. So that's custom audiences. Lookalike audiences, you amp it up farther. They say if you, and custom audiences are based on the fact you give a list of emails to Facebook that says, hey, Facebook, do you know these people? And Facebook will come back and say, I know 60% of them. Now, you don't have them by name. Remember, we don't know people's names. But we do know everything else that Facebook now knows about them. And so that you understand what got changed with Facebook recently, but it's still not totally restricted, is they have partner relationships. They tie together financial institutions, medical institutions, retail institutions. So any other correlated data about you and the digital aspect that you represent, it's drawn into that filter as well. Again, it's scary to think all the data that's about there. Everyone has a digital footprint out there. But the lookalike audiences, Facebook even goes a step farther. They say, you can ask Facebook, hey, of the list that I gave you, okay, how many people are within 1% exactly the same? Out of 55,000 points of data that they use to analyze this, can I get a list of people that are almost 99% exactly the same as the list I just gave you? So picture that you gave them a list of people that stayed in January at your hotel. And Facebook comes back and says, oh yes, we have, what country do you want? United States, okay? We have 1.2 million people that are 1% the same. Now all of a sudden you can take that data, all the other filters you're talking about, okay, and start looking at your feeder markets. And start sending them ads about your offer in January to them, even though they've never heard of your hotel before. And there's a higher opportunity for them to actually be interested in it than just spray and pray, or shotgun or spaghetti on the wall, whatever you want to call it. Okay? So, I'm going to ask a question, particularly the revenue managers. So, the scenario is this. Hotel lost 62% of its group business, or 60% of its occupancy from a group drop, 2 weeks out. Okay? So 2 weeks out, you just lost your 62% of the entire weekend business. The cancellation was unfortunately due to a tragedy. The client was a repeat client. You had an attrition clause, but you certainly were going to exercise it because they put it back every year. This was a tragedy that created the cancellation. But you got a 62% occupancy hold 2 weeks out. What are your options? Yes, ma'am.
Direct and OTA.
OTA, dump it and get, throw it out there. Probably at a less than normal rate. Try to capture any remaining demand to that time frame, right? Totally piss off your entire comp set because you drop to the basement. And what happens to people you already have in the books, the other 38? Probably a little bit back on the table again because they're going to fund the new rates. And you'll lose money on that as well. What other options do we have? What other choices do we have for that? Obviously dump it into OTAs, obviously drop the rate. Those are kind of that one lever, which goes to our argument about the difference between revenue managers and digital marketers. What else do we have? E-blast, okay. Who would you send to? Anything and everybody, or just any particular categorization? Because you're onto something.
It depends on your market, but our market's destination markets will be weekends and
Okay, so you leisure weekend, great, because at least there's some targeting towards who do we have that stayed with us on weekends. I'll find out that point. Excellent point, good direction, because that's exactly where we want to go with it, but in different usage. What else do we have? I'm sorry, sir?
Consortiums.
Consortiums. See what else is out there, residual, see if you can amp up their relationship. Yes, sir. That's a good choice. So all good answers, but again, it's really rate driven or last chance but I love your targeting. It's one of the first times that somebody's actually come up with giving me a suggestion of targeting rather than just dropping rate or OTA or something like that. So what we did was we created custom audiences. We took the people that were already on the books from the CRM system, the property management system, and made a list out of them. Remember, I'm going to call you if you're looking at your phone. And we took the people that stayed the same time last year, okay, and made a custom audience out of them. And then we took everybody within a 150-mile radius. Why 150-mile radius? Drive market. And we're 2 weeks out, so we missed the fly market, so we're not going to hit that for feeder market, so we got drive market. Okay, we put all of those together, but the list of people that were on the books, we made a negative, meaning what we're about to do, they weren't going to see. Why?
Don't want the money.
Right. Try to keep as much on the table as possible. We sent out the group offer, which really wasn't much different than what the best available was, but it was a group block offer. It was the rate that we threw out to it. We sold out. We were able to pick it back up. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. That's why it's in the presentation. But it does happen. Why did it happen?
They were already familiar with your product.
Familiar with the product? A lot to what you had said. Hey, these are weekend people, what have you. This was a tool to use. The misnomer that we have about marketing traditional to the new digital marketing is that there's some methodology difference. And it is only in the tools that we're using. Old school marketing still works. What this fundamentally is saying is I'm sending the message to the people most interested in what I'm talking about. Now, we used to do it in different ways. We have more examples to point to. But the idea of it is rather than just, this is rate and date, this is rate and date, is to say, no, you stayed with us the same time last year. You are in a drive market that you can take advantage of this offer in time. You are somebody that we think would be interested in what we have to say. And you can define it with this kind of tools that you have within platforms like Facebook. We're only picking on Facebook because it is the big gorilla in the room for this kind of stuff. There are other tools for other components to marketing strategy. This isn't all or nothing. This is certainly no silver bullet. And not all of them work this way, but they do have this propensity to be more effective, is the key point to all of this. Okay. Another one, and this one was kind of fun. Goes back a few years. I had the privilege of speaking at Focusrite in Florida, and at OPR I was working at the time, and I just didn't want to battle the traffic. I was early in the morning, so I called the hotel I was at, which was the Westin Diplomat, and said, hey, what's your rate? And they said $4.99. I'm like, yeah, the company's not going to pay for that. But we had a hotel up the road. So I contacted them thinking, yes, sir.
I just had a question on your previous.
Yeah, go ahead.
For that hotel, what was the booking window with the pickup?
That, it took all the way up until the weekend up. I mean, it took all.
Generally speaking, how far out did people book? Within that 14-day?
It was all within the 14 days. We sold out that weekend the minute we found out that we lost the group block and did what we just did.
So like in general though, like how far in advance do people book at that hotel?
At that hotel, that window for that time, wow, we're back into old memories. Usually 17 to 24 days was on that hotel, and it was not in season. Because that's why we had such a big group block at that time. It was non-seasonal. It wasn't Florida, but it was not seasonal. And for the group to have that much of a weekend piece was because we had that much of a window for it. So it was that time. But usually the book window was at or longer than was for the 14 days. Yeah, but thank you. I didn't realize that would actually make a difference. But a good question for it. Anyway, so this. So I called the hotel up the road and said, hey, you guys sold out because, we can't displace revenue. And they said, sold out because of what? And I said, well, the big conference down the road. And they're like, what big conference? I'm like, y'all do reader boards, right? And so I said, what's your rate right now? And they said, $2.99. So well, what's your rack? $3.99. So I made this ad with just what we talked about. I took everybody that liked Focusrite and everybody that sponsored Focusrite and sent them this ad. They said, hey, stay up the road, $100 less, and go to the conference. They ended up filling the whole week, plus getting a few extra thousand people to follow them. And then we thought, wow, that was just lightning. That happened. We're never going to do that again. And 2 years later, when we came back, we did it again, did the same thing. It was like, wow, this is actually kind of works persistently. From a food and beverage perspective, there was a restaurant. Actually, you might remember the restaurant. It's Boston's in Delray. So we went over and we went through a massive $1 million renovations to this restaurant. And their Friday nights were being slack. Their happy hours were slowing down, their live band at night was slowing down. I mean, these are logistic issues associated with beverage operations. You have your ups and your downs and your cycles for your business. So we went over and said, wow, okay, let's go over and see what we do about focusing on. So we created several posts. Now, the thing I should tell you about this restaurant, that it was surrounded by 71 other restaurants within walking distance. It was a small, dense downtown. So the real collateral to that being downtown experience was where to park. So valet parking was a key element to that process. So we had 150 parking spots, and we decided that we were going to send out a post that said, show this post, get free valet parking. What we did was we filtered it by saying, hey, all females, 24 to 34, okay, who are single, don't want to create family problems, like live music, and we're within a 5-mile radius, which you can do, it's called proximity marketing. Show the post and get free parking. So we put it out just before 5, which was on Friday, which was the happy hour cycle, last minute, what we're going to do. I don't know what you want to do. I don't know where you want to go. Because this is old school marketing. I used to run a restaurant. If I wanted a good happy hour, you get the single girls in because they don't want to buy their own drinks. And then the single guys show up to buy the single girls' drinks, hoping that they can meet the single girls. So this is old marketing, okay? But new tool, which was just, hey, show up. So at 5:45, we took the post down. Why? Because we had no parking spaces. It filled up. 9:45, we're going to post up, hey, if you like live music, show this, get free parking. We can only offer a free drink. Why? Nobody left. Because that's what they were there for. They wanted to meet and greet, and they didn't need to go to the other 71 other restaurants to the process. All right. So those are some examples of targeting. Now, we got better at it. We thought that, hey, again, lightning, this only happens once. We thought our competitors would catch on to this. Anytime we wanted to target and isolate, you geo-target, so forth. Didn't they still do blitzes? Oh, please don't. You have gatekeepers and receptionists, and there's only so many cookies in the world. Anybody in your market, think about what you do. Do you follow Interstate's Facebook page? Sure. But most people do, right? They follow their employer. I can target you. That's a filter. Anybody that works for Florida Power and Light, see this offer. Hey, you work for Florida Power and Light. Here's your rate. We don't have to go through gatekeepers anymore. It doesn't answer the L&Rs, okay? But it does answer the collaboration with the employees and so forth. You can isolate them by gender, families that have certain age groups of kids, whatever it is that you want to offer. These are all levers and buttons that can be pulled to target them in the process of making them understand what you're offering them. Okay. There are limitations to this. Ahead of you is 2 people that, according to what I just said, should be the same person, right? Both born, age, location, married, children, so forth and so on. So technically, I should be able to offer them something very much the same, because pretty much they're the same person, right? Except they're not. So this has limitations. It has borders and fences. There is things that it can and cannot really do. Yeah, because I was like, man, really? I didn't really know that about them. Okay. All right, cool stuff. I want you to think conceptually that revenue management marketing needs to start talking in collaboration with the other. I'm bringing that conversation back into our dialogue again. This is something that, and I brought this in because of Mike. This was something we tried to explore doing, and this was creating information that we were getting. I'm going to speak again to the revenue managers. If I told you that I could give you the location of everybody that went to our website and what dates they were looking for, so you know when you had your forward-thinking demand cycle, would that be useful? Yes. You got it for free right now. You can do that right now. Your technology people, your IT people in GTM Shell can track the dates that people put in, and they know the geographic location of where they're from when they were doing it. So now I have market, dates of interest. All we did was put it into Tableau that said, let's make a slide scale. I'm interested in generating business on week 20. And it showed what geographic area with the size of the balloon in the sense of volume people were looking from that market for those dates for your hotel, with the lead time of when they were looking for it. So in effect, I could say that Philadelphia was looking to stay at your hotel 81 days out. Now, how is that helpful to you marketers, salespeople? If you know the market that the interest is coming from, how does that change your strategies on getting to them? You certainly can target them. You don't have to hit every market. You can hit the markets you're most interested in. But it also goes one step farther. Revenue managers could then begin to isolate what rate they want because of the historic rate resistance they know from certain markets. For instance, if you're looking for an ADR of 199 and Philadelphia is historically slow at 169, you may not want a lot of business from them unless your pace is off. And you're at an opportunity where they can be reached because they have enough lead time that you can market to them, and you might want to create a little bit base business that you won't accept at 169 before you start having to scale it up to the other markets. What you see in front of you is us putting together an aggregation that says, show us where 80% of our revenue is coming from on any given date spread that we've indicated, and showing us by ADR length of stay. It's not meant to be read. You can see this in the slide deck if you want to play back. And showed where the revenue was coming from. The hierarchy was where the most revenue was coming from. But it also showed, and you could drill into it if this wasn't static, the channels that contributed that. So I could see that maybe paid was 26% of that if I wanted to get business from Philadelphia for the 20th week of the year, and I know that my paid was at 80 cents a click, my conversion was 3.5, so if I spent X dollars, I should be able to get X amount of revenue, which means X amount of occupancy. Well, wait a minute, I just made a forecast and I didn't use revenue management. That was all marketing data. That wasn't revenue data. Now, if you add revenue data to that, rate resistance, capacities, capabilities, now all of a sudden you're targeting your market to where revenue needs to be generated based on the guidance of your revenue managers talking to your marketing people. But you got to talk in the right language. This is just a real simple Excel sheet to exercise, because we're in budget season, so I threw it in. Not only industry that has a season for budget. What is it? It's budget season. Winter. What it basically breaks down to is you have your annual budget and then you have your revenue per month, right? Everybody has this. You have your group versus your transient, very top level, nothing really too complex. We're only going to focus on transient. If you took all your transient revenue for any particular given month, which is what you see on the top rows, does anybody know what their direct channel contribution percentage is to their hotel? Hmm? Yes, I agree with you. It's too low. It's a hard question. I go with the HM Science Rocket Program and I go around and ask the same question for it. And it's fundamental that you know what your direct channel contribution is, because a Pinto can't win NASCAR. If it's so low, no matter how good it is, it's still not going to tip you over the top. You know, obviously we have differences between OTAs and everything else that have higher contribution levels, and not everything is useful at the same time. As you know, there's certain times certain channels have a higher return on value than others at certain months. It just is. You pull which levers you need for what month you're getting it. It's not, oh, full tilt, we got to always be 20% on direct channel. Anyway, this spreadsheet, and this is low numbers, 10%, 9, and 8, was to say that if I took total transient revenue for that month, and my direct channel is supposed to be 10%, okay, then that's X dollars. Now, in the second section, you see the little red lines, is all the pieces that contribute to the direct channel. PPC, social pay, third-party meta search, retargeting social, blah, 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 blah. You may have more, you may have less. But each of those have a certain percentage contribution to the overall direct channel. And then each month, as you scale out to the right, there's a certain return on value. Sometimes PPC is 7 to 1, sometimes it's 10 to 1, sometimes it's 2 to 1. Okay? Each month is different. Your e-commerce people should know this. Your revenue people should be aware of it. But you build that out, and this is a working model. Everything in red is flexible. But what it does create is what you see in the greens and the reds, which means if the percentage contribution of the segments of direct channel and the return on value for each of the months are spread out, you then have revenue contribution by each of the channel segments and the direct cost, because of the return on value, per month. So what does this do for you? Hey, ownership, I need a budget of $125,000 in January. Oh, wow, that's not good. We only have 100,000. But I still need that figure of 223,000 on the top, or 500,000, whatever it is. Not going to happen. Why? Well, because right now, at our conversion levels, I can give you that revenue by spending that much money. You know, I need to give you $23,258.62 to make $126,000. Well, I can only give you $20,000. Well, then you're only going to get, let me figure it out, oh, this much. Unless two things happen. You increase the channel contribution, or you increase the segment conversion. Those are the only two variables that change these numbers. But it gives you a working tool in your budget conversations. It literally, yes, here's the end.
So like, the ROI numbers, how do you harmonize top funnel return on ad spend metrics with like bottom funnel? For the meta, obviously it'll be more perhaps, and the paid search, if you're targeting like non-branded, it'll be less.
This is a total mix of both, to be accurate with it. And there's also a flaw to this entire system, and that's a diminished value of return. Where if you try to force the direct channel segmentation to match the revenue capacity that it's supposed to do according to its contribution percentage, you get a diminished value of return. If you get past 6 points of variables, the next dollar is the worst dollar. So there is a cap to even how effective this, literally what it does, what this exercise does, this like I said, is a simple model, it also validates the channel distribution control as well. That there are times where even if you were trying to push a 10% direct channel, let's just make the number, okay, it's economically unfeasible for you to spend that much money to drive that kind of percentage from that channel because the channel's just not producing at the level it needs to. And that requires you to choose another channel that does have an effective conversion number. So for these numbers where you can, I mean, this like I said, is simplistic. You can splinter the PPC to upper and lower funnel, brand versus non-brand. You can split it even farther between types of display ads, even if you want to do affiliated programs. You can splinter as many variables to the segmentation you want to, that you want to track, as if you have the data for it. And it only hyper accuracy for it. But there is a diminished value of return model that just simply says you cannot maintain that channel at its contribution level for the monies you're spending because you're spending $1 that's not worth the dollar you're spending. So, again, like I said, it's a simplistic tool, but it does give you a program process that says I can identify what I need to spend for what I need to generate a revenue for what I obviously want to generate. We're getting close. Okay. This is what kind of a budget should look like, and it's a living, breathing document. This isn't the market plan that shows on the shelf that you take the annual date and change it and add it by 5, okay? This is a living, breathing document. What works gets added to, what doesn't work gets diminished. And you modify it to the month that it's being created for so that you always spend the monies on the channel that has the highest opportunity of value. Obviously, OTAs, we hate, we despise, whatever we want to call them, but man, there are some months that we can't live without them. So let's amp up our usage of them if needed, VIP program them, whatever it is that we want to do, highlight them so. But identifying your channels and what they create for value has to be the combination of marketing's conversation with revenue management and sales understanding of its use. It's critical we talk the same way together. Let's put in simple numbers. The flow of how this works is you have X number of leads. And actually, for those who are attending the influencer program tomorrow, this is a part I stole from Holly's program tomorrow. In here, just to give you an example of how the modified metrics work. Some people just think if we double one thing, it does something different. But let's say you get 10 leads, your conversion is 10%, your sale value is $7,500, your frequency of sale is 1, your gross profit is $7,500. Very simplistic math. Obviously, if we double the leads, same conversion, same sale, frequency of 1, gross profit $15,000. By just improving the funnel, what comes into the funnel. Can anybody tell me if I double everything, how much of an impact that would make? If I doubled both leads, conversion rate, sales, frequency, gross profit, how many times am I multiplying the success of this model? 4 times 4 is 16. It comes out to that much. So modifying any of these steps in the process, not just doubles it, it can significantly multiply the expansion value of what you're doing. As salespeople, you influence every aspect of this in your departmental's responsibility. Every part of this is yours. Marketing sometimes only has aspects of it, revenue management has only some aspects of it, but sales has complete access to it. You modify and can modify every piece of this discussion. This is more for, oh, by the way, there's 12 slides in this that I'm not showing that are just hidden out because we just flat out would not have any time. That is, goes into some more of the steps of this process, so that you have it as a reference point. So when you put a slideshow deck off the link I gave you, if you're interested enough, it'll have the descriptions more detail of these things. But that was the, excuse me, go back. That's the process of how we need to change what we're doing. Okay? This circle of conversation has to be all 3 departments, actually 4 or 5 if you consider accounting is critical. And I say that from the aspect that we will have Sojourn with us, and their relationship is solid because they want you to benefit on the incrementality of value, not on the duplicity of it. They're here to expand and modify. And I'm going to add a lot to this. But all of these relationships are meant to modify our abilities to perform and create more revenue. So accounting has to be a part of the conversation just as much as operations, because they need to know what they're looking at. Not just because somebody signed a contract that they have to pay an invoice for, but they have to look at what they're being produced with to correlate that to actual revenue increase or not. So anyway, this is a circle conversation that has to be shared by all. I put this slide in because there is a fundamental difference between reporting and analytics. Reporting is easy. Here you go. Figure it out. You want that data? Here it is. Okay. Don't come to me with questions. Analytics is, here's the data and this is what I understood. But in order for it to be understood, you have to talk in the same combination of terms. And that's KPIs, key performance indicators. You have to share the commonality of what it is you're talking about. Let me give you a perfect example. Non-marketing people, please do not answer this question. Salespeople and revenue people. What is ROAS? R-O-A-S. Return on ad spend. What does it mean to you? How do you use it? Do you use it? I mean, I can walk around as a marketer and go, 21 ROAS, I'm a king. Let me tell you how it gets different. So the goal for the month is $500,000. 10% of that, okay, 50,000. Revenue manager goes to the marketer and says, I need 50,000 this month. That's your 10% direct channel that you gotta give me. And I go out and say, well, okay, what are you giving? What do I have to do? Well, here's my rate categorizations, blah, blah, blah. You figure out what we're targeting, whatever it is that you guys do, and come back with $50,000. And I come back and say, I got a 20-to-1 ROAS. Okay, how much? $5,000. I took your lowest rate and I went out there and I just poured that thing out and got you a 21 ROAS. I don't need 5,000. Yes, I do, but I need, where's the other 45,000? Well, I'm off the hook because I'm not connected to you. I'm walking around like Tarzan, beating my chest thinking I'm a success because I did a great ROAS. My marker was, I got a great return on what my ad spend was. I got 21 return. And you're sitting there revenue management with that 45,000 deficit going, dude, you're supposed to go over and give me the whole package because we're not talking the same KPIs. The KPI was $50,000. I should not have spent my time on a 21 ROAS with the lowest rate just to say I could get a 21 ROAS because that was my benchmark to make $5,000. What I should be doing is telling you all the ways I'm making $50,000. That's the commonality. I left this slide in because what I refer to it as vernacular. We brought it up in the digital marketing conference in February. It's a kind of a mantra I keep hanging on to. It's creating a common language and a common risk. I have to be chained to you as a marketer, to you as a revenue agent, to you as a salesperson, that if I fall off the boat, you're sinking with me. I can't walk around and say, I did a 21 ROAS, it's up to you to figure out how to go to 45,000. I have to be in the same boat with you, that if we don't make that 50, we're all standing in front of somebody that we don't want to talk to. Just as much as if we do make the 50, we all get to share what it was like to stand in front of the right person and tell how successful we were. Two types of people. The person that's going to tell you the 99 things they tried never made, the other person just will tell you they got it done. And that comes from working as a team, and that's sales included to it. All right. This is how the model will work. Again, as time is up, I always go past, I'm so sorry. This is the combination of cycle. All these things don't talk to each other. These are all the systems we work with. This is the functionality of our ecosystem in hospitality. Companies are getting smarter at finding out ways to get outside the ecosystem so they solve their own problems. The CRM does talk to PMS, PMS does talk to revenue management. There is a collaboration between these departments. Some entities haven't figured this out yet. The people that figure this out get better in their market because all that data we kept talking about that we referred to early on and we'll talk about now is shared data. Marketers are sharing the revenue goals. They're the horizon line. They're the ones that understand where they need to go. Revenue managers understand the tools they can exercise to get to that goal. They're talking the same verbiage as to what that goal is. The timelines are accepted to be the same. This is one example I threw in as to other things. This is not to be read from here. It will be a document in the slide deck and also as a link. This is an entire ecosystem of your social program. Literally, if you took all that, you can run your social program. Because it tells you what you should be talking about, how you should be talking about, where you should be talking about, when you should be talking about it, what things you need to worry about, what securities you need to have with it. It'll be all there for you to get. Real fast, we'll click through some of these slides. This is changing, Google's changing. Okay, HPA, Hotel Finder Program, is coming into their AdWords program, so your marketing person is even turning more valuable to you because they're going to be having a big lever to work with within their ads campaign program. Some stuff that's changing that even in the industry it's hard to keep up. Did you know that there's a local index on your mobile as to how good your hotel's location is to events and activities around you? My client showed this to me. Never be in that kind of conversation with clients like, hey, do you know about my location index? Do I? You go look for hotels in market, Google will show you on mobile, if you scroll down to a certain hotel, to your hotels, your score up to 5 as to what your location reference is. And it tells you stuff I didn't even know we were close to. Like, really? You're only a mile away from that? Because Google knows where everything's at. So it correlates based on people trafficking to your hotel, what it thinks they'll be interested in, adds it to it, gives you a score, and puts it on the mobile platform, and you don't get to touch that. That's all them. And if you haven't noticed, you can also book through them, and they don't have to touch you either. Which is scary what's coming up in the world. Facebook has the same thing. Actually, it's very much more addictive because if your friends were traveling somewhere and they saw something, you're more likely to look at it too because your friends looked at it. It has a stronger influence than TripAdvisor. Because rather than the anonymity of an audience, it's your friends telling you that when I was in Honolulu, I went to this restaurant. Well, we look at it. I mean, maybe if they liked it, maybe I liked it. Huge influence difference than just 15 out of 20 people said, you know, hey, this is a good place. This is here. And for those who work here, did you know that there are 32 tracking elements to your website? More importantly, do you actually know what all the data are from those points? Now, some are usable by others, and some are piggybacked on by others. It's certainly not meant that there's not a lack of awareness. It's just, there is such a multitude of data sources that you have to ask the right question to get. But the data is so incredibly useful if you start collaborating with it. I don't think we have time to go to your thing, which I really wanted to, which was this. Do we go in 3 minutes? Yeah, I can make it. Okay. Scrap the rest of the stuff. We'll do it. All right. So this is Fusion. This is free on Google. It's called Fusion. This goes back on Fusion because Mike and I we did the scale. We had a client back in the day, single high-end resort, and they're going to taper off. And we're like, and nothing's changed. Service is great. Quality product's great. Everything's great. So why are we tapering off? So we decided to figure out where all the sources of business that they get for the past 2 years. We took all from the CRM data. Where did everybody come from the past 2 years? Just their zip codes. And we made a heat map out of it. Now, this is static, but if we could zoom in right down to a zip code. And what we said is, this is a pretty affluent product, so income is a correlation to their frequency of stay with us. So let's create an XY axis, the quadrant system, okay? So we took all these zip codes and we said, hey, if we drop the zip codes into the quadrant where the axes are, how much income is in that zip code, which is general census information, there's no rocket science here, their income level to zip code, to the amount of revenue they generated by zip code, how do all these zip codes land? And they created a scattergram, meaning everybody that were right, well, they're doing good by us. They have a good income and they're generating a lot of revenue for us. Those zip codes are good. Everyone in the lower quadrant that had high income but weren't generating a lot of revenue for us, what's up with that? All we did was snail mail. No offers, no specials, no nothing like, hey, remember how awesome you had a time with us? Come on back. Oh, we have 30% lift in 30 days. It was just, boom. Now we did was send a little mail to the zip code that said, don't forget us, because we all get inundated with this stuff. We all get white noise with so many things. It was great to come here. We will not get to these, but there is some great explanations on the slide deck. There's a lot going on with this. Voice acquisition. You all know how to ask your Alexa the best hotel in New York or the best hotel in Los Angeles to stay at. Have you asked your Alexa or your Google Assistant? Do you know how to get there? Do you know how to make sure they want to answer? Because remember, Google changed its business statement. It wants to be your ultimate personal assistant. It doesn't want to give you a group of answers. It doesn't want to give you alternatives to answers. It doesn't want to get you anything other than the answer that it thinks is best suited for you. It wants to give you one answer to one question. So how do you get there? How can you right now make your hotel be the answer that Google gives you? I know you know already because we already talked. But there's actually a mechanical way. There's a technical way of doing this, of putting tags in the schema, and then they just change the schema, and they just change their algorithm again. They're in constant evolution in this process. But that's where you're going to need to be. Because it's not about being in a directory anymore. Remember the hotel book? Remember the big fat book for, there's a lot of young people in the room. Us older people, there was a big hotel book. And if you weren't in that book, you didn't exist. Well, now we say, if you don't search engines, you don't exist. Well, pretty soon, if you're not that answer, you don't exist. And you turn into a commodity for Google that will sell you without them ever coming to your website or any other channel, because Google will be there in front of everybody up to that process. Again, I apologize for having to skip through all this. Scary stuff with this. If you aren't familiar with Facebook dynamic ads for travel, you need to talk to your marketing person like for instance, right now, I built catalog. And what this means is, if you ever click on a rate that says rate starting at 109, you click it, and there ain't no 109 rate. I mean, maybe there was on an off date one time that somebody bought as soon as the ad went up, meaning it's hard proof. These dynamic ads, all this stuff is dynamic, meaning it can be placed in as needed as to whom you are and when you're looking. And it's simple enough to create a catalog so that when they click on this, it actually goes to your booking and there is a rate and inventory availability of what they're talking about when they click on it. So it goes from a piss me off ad, like, yeah, there's no 109, to a, oh my gosh, it's available and ready. How quick are you able to maybe make that choice? These things actually exist. This is the work landscape from 2011 as to softwares and services you had choices from. This is the work landscape now in 2017. They haven't made the 2018 MarTech yet. And this is called the MarTech 5000. This is how many business entities in our market space right now trying to provide services for us. And not just us in hospitality, but us as for the technical digital world for it. GDPR, we didn't get to talk much about it. That's okay. Lots of information, lots of links, lots of information on the link that I gave you to understand what it is. If you haven't complied with it or understand the implications of complying with it, it is critically important that your data and IT people mostly understand that. I think, Mike, we are probably, didn't get to talk about influencers, dang it. But that's about as far as I can get before I really push your patience. There. Slide deck's there. Please contact me anytime you have any questions. By all means, follow-ups to this. Sorry to have rushed on the end of it. But any questions you have from out of this, and the slide deck and the recording will be available.